Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Doctor Who review. This week is a totally weird one. You'll probably notice it's about a day late. Doctor Who came out last night, The Vanquishers, episode 6, the finale of Flux. This is going to be the messiest review I think I've ever done on this channel. To explain, for those who aren't on Twitter and all that sort of thing and haven't been following what I've been doing, I only just got back into England about an hour ago, and I've basically been travelling home to get this review done. I've been abroad for a friend's birthday, so haven't been able to watch the episode and review it until right now. So I'm on 3 hours sleep, right off a flight, just watched the episode, and yeah, now I guess we'll get to talk about it, which is fun. So this is going to be a totally messy review, as I've already pre-emphasised here. And of course, as always with every episode, there's going to be a longer 50 minutes, hour long review on my podcast weekly called Spill Your Beans. We do an episode there every week of the Who review where we talk about the latest Doctor Who episode in a lot more detail after I've had time to rewatch it, and this is definitely going to be one of those episodes because oh my god, there is a lot to talk about here and I don't know how much of it I'm going to be able to do in this video. So yeah, let's just start with this because it's such a it's just going to be such like a rambly kind of review. Okay, so let me get a few things clear off the bat. I am very positive about Whittaker's era of Doctor Who. I really do like a lot of it. It has its flaws, and I do not deny those flaws, but I'm still able to find a lot of enjoyment out of it without sort of diving too deeply into those flaws. However, this episode really didn't do much for me, and by didn't do much, I mean severely disappointed me, to be honest. I try to be positive about it, I really do, because to be honest, and I genuinely mean this, I have absolutely adored Flux. Flux seemed like a big step in the right direction for Chris Chibnall. Obviously it's his last series with Jodie as the Doctor, it's his last series as a showrunner and probably writer for the show. And 5 out of 6 episodes have been at least consistently good. Survivors of the Flux has its issues. Once Upon a Time has its issues. Village of the Angels has its issues. I wasn't a huge fan of that at the time, but the point is that it's all consistent and all flows within that story. Whereas this, pardon my French, I don't know what the fuck I just watched. I really don't, because this just wasn't it for me. I was really thinking, God, they're going to really struggle to wrap all this up, and they did. They did as if they just didn't plan it. And a lot of these gorgeous, amazing concepts and arcs and ideas that have been set up just didn't go anywhere. Just didn't pay off. It is almost as if they had an end goal, and they had to just get them to that end goal as quickly as possible, using as many characters as possible to do so. Basically how I feel about this episode is it is such a disappointment only because of how amazing the episodes have been prior to this, in my opinion. Even with their flaws, I've been able to thoroughly enjoy them, whereas this episode took me right out of it. I don't want to say it's terrible, I don't want to say it's the worst in Doctor Who's history, it's really not. Doctor Who has had some terrible episodes, and this does not take the cake by any stretch of the imagination. This still has a lot going for it, but it is one of my least favourite and most disappointing Whittaker era stories. Only because of just what it tries to do and how it just ends up failing the landing. And as I've always said with almost every episode of this series, this is really good content, this is really good stuff, but what it really needs to do is it needs to hit the landing. It needs to get onto episode 6 and it needs to really make sure that it lands and it is successful and it works and it ties up everything in a satisfying way. I feel like this episode didn't really do that. And I can't really exemplify my point too much without sort of talking about the characters. So as always, we'll do that. And I want to start with Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor. She was brilliant in this. As always, Jodie Whittaker is consistently good in this. She played 3 versions of the Doctor in this. 4, technically, if you include that interface at the end. And she smashed it. The humour, the darker stuff, the balance of it all was really good. The story was a bit all over the place, which is something I'm going to be saying a lot, but actually Jodie's performance and dialogue and all that sort of kit and caboodle was actually not that bad. Solid work from Jodie, really good stuff. She was given enough and she performed enough. And yeah, it's pretty solid stuff to be honest. But yeah, Jodie's performance is consistent throughout Doctor Who. It's pretty bloody good in terms of comedy, in terms of darker stuff. You just kind of wish it was given a little bit more oomph with the writing is all. But on the whole, pretty good stuff from Jodie, really good stuff. In terms of the companions, Dan and Yaz, they did nothing last week as we kind of talked about, they had their own little adventure. But in this week they didn't really do much. There was a sort of thing about Yaz and Dan have been away for 3 years and there wasn't really much of a reaction. We got a hug between Yaz and the Doctor, which is lovely of course, but like, there just didn't seem to be any proper connection there through most of the episode. There's a fantastic scene when they see each other at the end of the episode and have that conversation and, like, almost kiss, a few people were saying, which is totally valid, and I was kind of wishing would happen, to be honest, because, you know, they've been kind of hinting at it for a while. Maybe that's something that will get developed, we don't know. But I like, just with Yaz and Dan, it's like there's just a lot of stuff in the middle of the episode that just went missing. It's like, where did they go? What did they do? There's characters like Claire and Jericho who are brilliant and who were brought into this episode, but served a purpose, did something, whereas Yaz and Dan didn't. And I know that's what the plot was sort of laid out to do, but you can change the plot. You're writing a story, like, you can change these things. And giving Yaz and Dan nothing to do, again, is just kind of upsetting. I like Dan, I like Yaz, but my god, we've had Yaz for 3 series, and, like, the character needs to do more, otherwise we're just going to be left with this really empty-feeling companion. We've not seen her family this series, bar her sister. The mental health stuff that was sort of teased at being explored in this series hasn't even been referenced. A lot of important and exciting parts about Yaz's character that were introduced in series 11 and 12 have not been expanded upon, and she's a lot more hollow, especially in this episode. You know, when Jericho dies, there's just no reaction from Yaz and Dan, despite the fact that they spent 3 years together. It isn't great. Like, let's think about it in a way of, like, how long were Yaz, Ryan and Graham together as, like, a TARDIS team? If it was less than 3 years, you would assume that Yaz would feel as passionately about Jericho dying than Graham and Ryan. I don't feel that here. Same with Dan. I guess there's probably a different character with Dan because he's only a new character, but the point still stands. You know someone for 3 years and they die quite a horrible death, you know, being ripped apart. You don't say anything? You don't even react? You don't write that into the script? Again, Mandip Gill and John Bishop did a really great job with what they were given, but as per with this episode, they weren't given a great amount to do. And that's the kind of issue I have with this episode, and it's probably starting to rear its head a little bit more, especially when we talk about the fan favourite Kate Stewart, who I absolutely adore. I was so excited when Kate Stewart was announced to be coming back. I was a bit disappointed that they sort of spoiled it in the Next Time trailer, but she had a little glimpse in the last episode, and I was really excited to see what they were going to do with her this week. Again, just not really much. A huge character like Kate Stewart, one that fans absolutely adore, you're desperate to see things like, what is this character's reaction going to be to the new Doctor? She's never met Jodie's Doctor before. What's her reaction going to be to Jodie being a female Doctor? All that sort of thing. Not that it's super important, but, you know, Captain Jack got that, and Kate Stewart is a character that in the past has commented on the different looks of the Doctors, joking about Capaldi's roots, for example. It's some sort of introduction between them, and we get 13 saying Kate Stewart, pointing out that she is there in the room, and then not saying a word to her for ages. Just, Kate Stewart is there to feed exposition. That's it. And I know people love Kate Stewart, and I know people love her inclusion in this episode, and I wish I could feel the same. I genuinely do, because I was so excited to see her back. I just feel that she went from this wonderful character in the Moffat era, and I wasn't even a huge fan of, like, the Moffat era and how they did Unit and all that sort of thing, but she was a good character, and in this, kind of just like a cardboard cutout in the nicest way possible. Obviously, she's probably going to come back in the Centenary special with Unit, so that's obviously like a big thing that's going to happen, and we're going to get much more with her then, hopefully. But in this episode, the huge hyping up of Kate Stewart being this big thing for the last 2 weeks, well, the last 3 weeks, I guess, but the end of Village of the Angels, really, it's just kind of like a weird thing for her to have a fantastic end to the last episode. She was brilliant in the last episode, the little we saw of her, but in this, just a kind of, like, exposition, and then sort of hiding in the Williamson tunnels for no reason. Like, I don't want to be too picky, but it's really difficult to not be picky when these sort of things are just left there, and fans are going, well, why even bring this character back, unless you're going to do something with her? Anyway, let's race through the rest of the stuff. Vinda and Belle, really great stuff. I love their reunion, I love their characters, but again, in this episode, their characters kind of disappeared. Vinda has been a huge disappointment for me this whole series. I don't think he's done enough. They hyped him up quite a lot. I feel more about Belle than I do for Vinda, and even Belle in this episode didn't get too much to do. She still got more to do than Vinda, but just, there we go. It was nice, it was interesting, but they didn't really go anywhere. The whole theory about the Doctor's parents kind of fell through, didn't it? Which is fine. I don't mind that. That's fine. I just wish, again, that they'd done a bit more. They did do a lot more than the companions, so credit where it's due, and they had a bit of character and a really nice reunion moment. So there's some good stuff there, stuff to praise, but I just wish there was more of it. Karvanista, fantastic stuff. Genuinely, Craig Ells did a fantastic performance in this. I think what they did with Karvanista's character was brilliant. That's probably one of the best character arcs this whole series, is the talking dog man that we all thought was a joke in episode 1. Him being an abandoned companion from the Fugitive Doctor era, and like not even being able to talk about his past without his head exploding or something, or being poisoned, is gorgeous. Killing off his entire race and having him seek revenge is brilliant. I think that's such a great way, and I'd love to see this character again. I really, really would. Not that I think we will, but I would love to. So I'm totally down for that. But yeah, solid stuff for Karvanista. Diane, cool character, but again, not really done, she's not really had much to do since episode 1. So yeah, Jericho was cool. Really liked his send-off, really liked his character. Solid stuff all around for Jericho. Genuinely, really, really good stuff. Claire was really great. Glad to see her in this episode, but again, a character that didn't feel like they needed to be here. It would be the same effect as Mary Seacole showing up in this episode again. Claire was a great character for that episode, but she didn't need to come back. I guess there's probably a few things you could tie up there, but like the time you spent doing exposition between Claire and the Doctor about what happened with the Angels and all that sort of thing, you could have spent on more important things like the Grand Serpent and Kate Stewart and all that sort of thing. But yeah, no, she's nice, she's a great character, but I just feel like she didn't need to be in this episode at all, really. In terms of the villains, obviously the Grand Serpent's in this. I think the Grand Serpent is a brilliant character who had a great interaction with the Doctor in this, but again, underused, and probably will never come back, so that's great. Kate Stewart and Vinda confronting him was great. Vinda confronting him was sort of inevitable, kind of predictable, but it didn't really feel like that big impact moment that we're all waiting for with Vinda. Even though we know his backstory, I just kind of felt a bit empty when I saw that scene. I was just like, yeah, well, they're just going to... There's only about 5-10 minutes of the episode left, so they're just going to lock him away. That's basically what the Grand Serpent had. He was going to take over the Earth and be their leader. Once we find out what his intentions are, then he just gets put away in a box and that's it, forgotten about. So, cool, but again, just disappointing, really. Sontarans are great. I'm getting a little bit fatigued with them, but they are really good in this series. A lot of fun. The comedy moments are great. The serious moments are great. These are the best Sontarans I've seen on Doctor Who, I reckon, probably. In my opinion, anyway. I'm just a bit kind of sick of them now, so I'd rather them be retired for a couple of years before coming back, but, I like them. The Ravagers exist. I really liked them up until this episode. I think they were done a total disjustice. Azure had a great speech to the Doctor, which I really, really loved, but their death felt very unceremonious and kind of just empty. It just kind of happened to get the story moving along, and again, it's just one of those things, again with this sort of video which I keep mentioning for this episode, where it's like there's a lot of concepts that are really great but then just get wrapped up too quickly. This episode, this entire story, should have been 2 parts. There should have been 7 episodes. 7 or 8 episodes, really, to really flesh out this ending, because this whole Flux event is a great idea, but it got wrapped up way too quickly. That's the issue here. And I wasn't a huge fan of that, because it left stuff like the Ravagers, who are phenomenal characters, just thrown away and forgotten about, basically. They got a cheap death, a few lines of dialogue, a few mysterious things, well, that was it. And then there's the Cybermen and Daleks, which, again, just like probably B-roll footage from Revolution of the Daleks in one shot, and the Cybermen, 2 people in the Cybermen costume standing with a gun. Like, it was very low budget feeling, which is fine, you know what I mean? But when you put it in the Next Time trailer, you put Daleks and Cybermen and Sontarans in the Next Time trailer, people are going to be expecting this all-out war kind of thing. The Daleks and Cybermen get mentioned, but they don't show up until like 10 minutes before the end of the episode, where they immediately die and get entirely wiped out. And yeah, they were just a bit pointless, but that's fine. I don't really care about the Cybermen and Daleks. They're always knocking about, so there's always going to be more content with them. I think for me, this episode generally, I really did want to like it. I really did want to get all out of it. And maybe I'll change my opinion when I rewatch it and do my full review on my, obviously, my podcast, Spotify. We talk about this all the time. But maybe in that review, I'll be a bit more praising of it, because maybe I'll have had time to rewatch it, maybe on more sleep, and maybe get more out of it. But it's not me hating, it's not me wanting to go out there and be a negative Nancy, because I have thoroughly enjoyed this series, and if you know me and you know my channel, I have been very supportive of the Whittaker era. It's something that I've got a lot out of as a fan of Doctor Who, and something that I enjoy more than what I presume a lot of people. But I have to say, yeah, of course it's a better finale than something like Ranskrav Kolos, because it's got more in it to look at and feel and all that sort of thing, and the music was excellent, all that sort of thing. But like, if there's anyone out there saying this is better than The Timeless Children, I can't agree. The Timeless Children had the lore stuff, but at least did something cool, and it was kind of a lot less complicated and kind of wrapped up its own stories in a good and satisfying way that felt very natural. I think with this, I was wanting something a bit more like The Timeless Children, where it was a bit more slow-paced. I knew they could never get away with it. I knew it was never going to land properly, and it was always maybe doomed to fail. But I don't know. I don't know what the general consensus of this episode is. I know a lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't, and I hope you can understand that I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to say that your opinion is wrong if you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this episode, I'm super jealous of you. I really wish I could have got that same feeling, because I was so excited for this. But I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed coming out of it. So that's kind of where I'm left with it. I really wish I had more to say, but I think that might be it for me. I think this has been quite a long review, and I would really love to, you know, kind of put a positive spin on it, but to be honest, I am just left a bit disappointed. I don't think it's the worst thing in Doctor Who history. I don't think it's the worst finale of all time. I just think it's probably one of the more disappointing stories I've watched in Doctor Who. But that being said, I had the same reaction with The Doctor Falls when I first watched it, and that's now one of my favourite stories. So maybe in time I'll change my mind and think something totally different. I really, really don't know. At the moment though, I'm more excited for the New Year's special, Talking of which, obviously we'll be reviewing that on this channel, so check out, subscribe, notifications on, all that sort of stuff for more. And yeah, that's basically it from me. I think that's all I want to say. Follow my social media, obviously. The podcast we're still uploading to weekly. We're going to have a little bit of a break soon, but we'll be back with the New Year stuff, Doctor Who and or otherwise, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, no, we've got a Patreon page obviously now as well if you want to get early access content. We're going to try and do a few more Doctor Who things over Christmas on this YouTube channel, so hopefully stick around for that, I guess. And yeah, hopefully I'll do a full in-depth Flux review at some point later this week, kind of talking about the whole thing, whether it worked, whether it didn't, how I feel about it after rewatching the episode, all that sort of thing. But yeah, thanks so much for watching this horribly paced and rambly review with 3 hours sleep George. I really am sorry for the quality of this. It's just how it worked out, but I'd rather get a video out to you with my initial opinions before just waiting a few days, because I'll still have my proper in-depth review on my podcast on Wednesday. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all later. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.